Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for being here. My name is Alex Cliff, and I'm CFO here at Lloyds. I think my first order of business is just to say that we are being recorded this evening. But it is my honour to open this second instalment of our Flint Lecture Series, an annual fixture in the Lloyds Inclusive Futures calendar that provides us with the opportunity to reflect on the importance of inclusion and the constant need for purpose-led change. Many of you will know that our lecture series is named after a pioneer of our market, David Flint, who I'm pleased to say joins us here this evening. David was the Lloyds' first black broker and boasts an impressive career within the Lloyds market that spans over 45 years. He's a champion of the culture we want to see thrive in our community and beyond. And as well as naming this lecture series after him, we are pleased to have his portrait up in the old library as one of our diversity champions. So in his name, this evening's event provides a platform to powerful voices on the topic of history, inclusion, and heritage. By listening and learning, we seek to understand our past and ensure our present is inclusive and positioned to attract and empower the very best talent from every background. As executive sponsor of the Lloyds Military Network, I'm personally very pleased to be welcoming Major Scotty Mills as our keynote speaker this evening. I'm proud of Lloyds' deep military connections and the opportunities we create for people with backgrounds in the armed services. In fact, our market has had its own house branch of the British Legion during the Second World War and is one of only 2 house branches still active today. And of course, we extend our undying respect for the many colleagues from across the market that have served and given their lives in conflicts throughout our 3 centuries of history. In the field of combat, leadership is forged in challenge. It is about building teams that thrive under pressure, where trust is earned and every voice matters. These are lessons that Lloyds can learn from and build upon as we shape a marketplace that reflects the diversity and resilience of the world that we serve. The Flint Lecture Series was created to champion leadership just like that. Leadership that doesn't just command, but connects. That doesn't just direct, but develops. That doesn't just speak, but listens, learns, and adapts. At Lloyds, we are proud to be evolving through our Inclusive Futures initiatives and with our 8 founding partner firms from the market. We are investing in black and ethnically diverse talent from the classroom to the boardroom because we know that diverse teams are stronger teams. And as we go further to secure that diversity, there is much that we can learn from the military, where success depends upon building unity, shared purpose, and the confidence to challenge the status quo. And it is in this spirit that we welcome our keynote speaker today, Major Scotty Mills. Scotty has led a distinguished career as a member of the Royal Marines, leading the British Commandos as the highest-ranking black officer in the history of the Royal Marines, reaching the status of Commando Green Beret officer. Scotty served for 32 years, learning all there is to know about leadership and high performance. Having led commandos in war zones, more recently, he's coached elite athletes and inspired leaders across sectors, including one Sir Gareth Southgate. I'm sure I can speak for everyone when I say that we are incredibly honoured to have Scotty here this evening at Lloyds to share his journey of breaking barriers, building teams, and leading with integrity. At this second of no doubt many Flint lectures, let us reflect on what it means to collaborate with courage, build high-performing teams, and foster a truly inclusive culture. So please join me in welcoming Scotty to the stage.
Well, Alex, thanks very much for the wonderful introduction and for inviting me along. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening. My name's Scotty. I've just come off the back of a 32-year career in Her Majesty's, now His Majesty's, Royal Marines, Britain's Commandos, the Green Berets, where in my last job, I was head of performance for all 6,500 of our Green Beret Commandos, both from a physical training perspective, but also from a mental fortitude perspective as well. A supreme privilege of a job, working with some incredible people, where I did end up becoming the highest ranking black Royal Marine Commando officer in history, something I'm actually really proud of. So, let me go back. One of my first experiences, I've remembered it because it was a negative one. I come from very humble beginnings. I'm a South London lad. I come from a place called Peckham. And I was bounced around a little bit as a youngster. Common story, eventually was adopted by my nan and granddad. My granddad's like my mentor, my spirit, my best mate, my role model, my hero. Yet still I was falling into the temptation of the London gangs and the like. And surely if I'd not inadvertently joined the Royal Marines, then I'd have ended up, join a gang, go on drugs, go to prison, die early. Common story, we see it so many times, wasted life. I remember as a youngster just at primary school, and we went to go to Buckingham Palace. Small group of kids, all my age, looked just like me. We're looking through the gates of Buckingham Palace at the changing of the guard. Never knew what I was going to become then. And as we're looking through the gates, the teacher said something which was negative and said, look, you know, you can look through the gates, but people like you don't get to go in places like that. It's funny sometimes, you know, when you're told something that limits your self-belief and self-confidence in you. As a young person, you believe it. And, you know, it doesn't take much to then start to think that you're not going to amount to much, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to be able to achieve. And we'll circle back to that at the end. Never my intention to join the Marines, in fact. I was into roller skating and ice skating as a teenager, quite a bit. My nan and granddad, they had less than nothing. They'd saved a couple of years for me to have these brown suede Bauer skates. Picture the scene, I had burgundy leg warmers, two-tone jeans, a Sergio Tacchini tracksuit with detachable arms I was very proud of. And my afros was once so big, I once found a full-size HB pencil in it I didn't even know was there. True story, I was going to a place called Streatham in South London. Skates over my shoulder and it started to rain. I didn't want to get my skates rusted. So I dived into the shop frontage and I'm looking up and down the high street waiting for the rain to stop. Didn't want to get my skates rusted. I had respect for them. And what I've inadvertently done is that I've walked by accident into the Royal Marines Commando recruiting office. And it's funny in life. Sometimes you turn left or you turn right, or maybe it rains or it doesn't rain. And it changes the direction and the vector of your life. We've all had moments like that. Now I'm getting a tap on the shoulder from this Green Beret sergeant who's come out of the office. He says, you look like a fit lad. Can you do pull-ups? I'm like, I can actually. So now he's dragged me inside. I'm hanging off the pull-up bar. I'm doing like 25, 30. I did 4. 2 more than they do with army recruiting. But let's not go there. Cheap shot, wasn't it? He said something to me that was the total polar opposite of the messaging that I'd been receiving in my life to date. He said, young man, I see some potential in you. Have you ever thought about joining the Marines? Didn't know anything about them. Gave me some paperwork. Here was an opportunity. So I went back to go and see the one person that I knew that had my back, that didn't want anything from me. We all need someone like that in our lives, don't we? My old granddad. I knew he'd served alongside some of the Marines in the war, and he said to me, son, that is the longest and the hardest training in the world. But if you get through that and earn your Green Beret, it will change your life forever. And of course, he was right. So I only get an invitation down to the Commando Training Centre of the Royal Marines, a place called Limpstone in Devon. And when I've walked in, I've seen these instructors with their Green Berets, living their lives by a different metric to me. They were talking about humility, integrity, striving for understated excellence. I was hooked straight away. I mean, you speak to the youngest recruit all the way up to the oldest veteran, and anybody that served in the 361-year history of His Majesty's Royal Marines, they will instantly be able to tell you about our commando values: courage, determination, unselfishness, and cheerfulness, especially in the face of adversity. Why is it that the youngest, least experienced people of our organisation can tell you about its qualities, its values, its mindset, its ethos? Well, what we do, having a couple of decades later gone on to go and be one of the officers in command of all the training, we take these words off a poster on the wall and we place them within young people, and we demand that it becomes a way of life. They teach and we listen. They coach and we practice. They mentor and we develop. And as the training itself starts, there's some themes that run through the training. You know, I get the opportunity to talk to teams and businesses, I think across every industry now, pretty much, from pharmaceuticals to hospitality, from retail to Apple, BMW and Slimming World and a million others. Sometimes I'll be straight with you, my perspective. Sometimes I see a leader stand up and say, you know, we've got a big year coming up. I need you to give me 150%. We've got to step the game up. Got to be honest, that wouldn't necessarily motivate me, especially if I'm giving my all anyway. Scotty's slant on it is, I think the most that you can ever demand of yourself or of anyone who you have the privilege to lead is everything they've got, their own individual 100%, whatever that looks like. Because we're all at different stages of their journey, so our 100% might look different from person to person. But what I learned in the Marines is that you can grow your 100%. The way that we do it isn't very subtle. We make them cold and wet and tired and hungry. We give them something to do they can't do on their own. We might even give them something to lead. And we take them to what they think their 100% is. For us, it's normally physical, but you get the gist. And what we then do, when they feel as though they can't move anymore, they can't take any more steps forward, we ask them to go from the physical into the realms of mental fortitude, that commando mindset that we're proud of. And we ask them to take one more step forward, climb 1 more metre higher, crawl 1 more metre on the ground. And they grow their 100% just a little bit that day. The next day, we'll take them to their new 100%. And we'll ask them to grow that just a little bit the next day. Times that by 32 weeks of the longest and hardest training in the world. Times that by 32 years of my experience leading Britain's commandos around the globe. You can smash the glass ceiling of anything you ever thought was possible. And it's where some of those most impossible dreams did start to come true. At the end of the Marines training, they saved the hardest for last. You realise that this is not about you. You realise that your collective performance can reach so much higher than any one individual ever will. You realise that it's not about ego. Leave your ego at the door, because the Marines don't want it. They don't want blame. They don't want excuses. They don't want fear. They don't want limits to what's possible. And you're in an environment where you trust everybody around you. You've been through things, you've broken barriers, and the people around you form this ring of steel where you start to believe that anything is possible. And of course, off the back of that, you get a sense of belonging, sense of unity, sense of collective purpose in your drive for the Green Beret. The Marines saved the hardest for last. 4 commando tests, 9-mile speed march, carrying all your kit and equipment. Start as a team, finish as a team. 1 fails, you all fail together. So you take collective responsibility, not just for your performance, but for the performance of the entire team. The second one, Tarzan and assault course, 2 assault courses. One of them's 30 feet up in the trees. Third one is the endurance course, 2.5 miles of underwater tunnels with obstacles such as Peter's Pool and the Sheep Dip. And the final one is a 30-mile march across the entirety of Dartmoor. Starts a team, finishes a team, carrying all your kit and equipment. One fail to get in the time, you all fail together. So the Green Beret, the Royal Marines, demand that you complete each of these 4 commando tests on consecutive days at the end of the longest and the hardest training in the world. You get through that, they only go and award this 19-year-old kid a Green Beret. One of the greatest days of my life. So after that effort, the Marines give you the weekend off, which is really nice of them, isn't it? And it's not till you get home you realise that what you've just done, albeit very, very hard and very rewarding, that was only a job interview. Hard one, wasn't it? But now you're going to be going on deployments, exercises, and operations around the globe, jungles and deserts and mountains and operations. Coldest I've ever been in, northern Svalbard with the wind chill, minus 76 degrees Celsius. You thought today was cold? That is proper chilly. You spit on the floor and it's ice before it hits the floor. Your eyes freeze together from the moisture. Every part of your body must be covered up. Otherwise it's going to turn black and die. The Marines put you in this situation where the training's so hard, but the whole idea of that is that you train hard so that one day you can fight easy. And these operations that you go on, you work as a team. You trust and empower each other. You realise that leaders set the tone and environment. These leaders in the Marines, they'll never ask you to do something that they wouldn't do themselves. They become true role models going forwards. Because the Marines know that the greatest teams perform at their best when the pressure is at its highest. And the way we do that is that we do the things that others won't do to have the success that most never will. By the time I was halfway through my Marines career, as a sergeant, when the Twin Towers fell, I knew it was going to change my life completely. By now I was in command of 44 Royal Marines, a unit called 40 Commando. We were deployed to Iraq, and by the time we got down there were 330,000 coalition troops. We started to hear that our unit of 150 Marines were going to be the theatre entry troops of choice, first to go on the ground to start the invasion. First 150 out of 1/3 It's getting deadly serious, and at that time we were told that there was a 20% chance of us surviving the mission, completing the mission. That is not the best news you've ever had. And in these situations where you have teams that pull together truly, when you look around and you celebrate the differences that you have, the Marines show you that we talk about diversity. Steve will tell you that the Marines don't care what you look like, what your background is, where you come from, what colour you are, what orientation you are, what gender you are. The Marines don't care. If you can do the job, you can do the job. And that comes to a point when you go on these operations where you're expected to complete what many think is impossible, to be able to go that extra mile. And that's where the training for us, it always kicks in. I mean, you know, we had to go on what was literally a do or die mission into Iraq, having been told that there was a 20% chance of success. And as we flew in, 3 different helicopters, we had to go in and secure the oil lines for the rest of the invasion to come in, a true do or die mission. If we got shot out of the sky, they'd have to send some more. And as you're swerving left and swerving right, you look around at the people that are around you. And those qualities, those bedrock values, allow you to push something like fear away and allow something like excitement to kick in. And you have, when you've got these bedrock values, you have this increased confidence that gives you the self-belief that you and your team, while you don't know what the outcome is going to be, you back yourselves to win no matter what. Our unit received a battle honour that day under command of a then Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Messenger, who some of you in the room know. And Iraq was one of those places that I still dream about at night, where I've seen the worst of humanity, seen hatred and abuse. And I'm going to leave that there for a moment, because I think we can tease that out in our discussions afterwards just a little bit more about some of those experiences. After I come back from Iraq, after I'd completed a degree, this young lad from Peckham with no chance in life, with a debilitating stutter, you know, the Marines have given me an opportunity in my life to study, to do some education. I've got an opportunity to become a commissioned officer. Even 20 years before this was impossible. That here I am now being celebrated by my fellow Marines, my fellow officers, the people who have inspired me the most in my life. I say I've had the opportunity as head of performance for all of the Marines. A lot of organisations want to come down and say, how do you get a young lad with afros and roller skates, and 32 weeks later he's prepared to put his life on the line for his brother or his sister by his side? How do you do that? Well, a lot of teams want to come down and come and see how we do our business. We had the England rugby team come down in 2002. We put them through their paces a wee bit. They went on to go and win the World Cup, so that made us look really good, right? I've worked with European champions, the Lionesses. I've worked with World Cup winners, the England rugby team. I've worked with Olympic gold medal winners from London 2012 and Rio 2016. Yet there was only one team I ever really wanted to get my hands on, and luckily for me, I managed to do it. I mean, it was one of Gareth's backroom staff who had a really positive experience of working with the Marines. So then they said, you know, they invited themselves down and we put them through their paces. Probably about 3 out of 10 compared to what we put our Marines through. But I got alongside Gareth as the leader, and I said, what is it you think that we can help you with? And he said, Scotty, you know that our football team has been paralysed through fear of failure. Tournament after tournament, big game after big game, we keep making the same mistakes. Something's got to change. And when we've done some interaction with this team, we realise that they're not connected. There is no identity in this team. There's no sense of belonging. Their identity was to stand behind a picture of St. George slaying a mythical dragon. 70% of the England football team have got dual nationality. They are not inspired by the slaying of a dragon. And it was really interesting to see that the things that did inspire them, that did connect them together, was their love of their club teams that they played for. And now they're all together as one, or you would think so, trying to play for England, but they still had their club loyalties. And you'd have a table sat over there at dinner. Liverpool players over there, the Man City players over there. And they were disconnected by so many different areas. So we did some work with them over the course of just a weekend. We put them through their paces a little bit, and we put them in situations where they had to work together. where they had to interact with each other, where they had to form these bonds. Because Gareth knew that all 55 members of the England football team had to come down, go through this profound experience as we take them out of their comfortable football industry, bring them into our industry where they lose control. They got no control over it. We put them through their paces, put them in situations where they've got to overcome as a team, and that feeling of overcoming, then they take it all together, they form their own ring of steel, go back into their organisation and then overcome the next hurdles together. Right at the end of the weekend working with the England football team, the staff and the leaders went off for a meeting, and I had 23 England footballers in front of me. You'll know some of the names: Harry Kane, Jordan Henderson, Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, people like that. So they're all sat there patting each other on the back, congratulating each other after their weekend in the Marines. What great Marines they'd make. Oh, how I laughed. So I stand up in front of them, take my green beret off and hold it in the air. And I said, I need to explain to you what this green beret means to me. Do you know what mine means? It will mean something different to anybody else that's ever earned one. Mine, honestly, with my hand on my heart, means diversity. And the reason that I say that is because I promise you, in my 32 years of service, not one Marine ever has ever once judged me on the colour of my skin, my background, or where I'm from. But what they will judge me on is what I do and how I do it every single day. That's inextricably linked to the qualities, the values, the mindset, the ethos and the culture of the Marines. That's linked to this little bit of green cloth that we hold so dear. The truth is, you cut me open and I'm green inside. And I'm so very proud of that. So I'm explaining this to the England football team. I said, is there anything that unites you, that drives you, that defines you? I've got a couple of the players stood up now saying, Scotty, it's not St. George and the dragon, it's the three lions. I'm like, okay. And I was starting to see some connections with everybody nodding, going, it's the three lions. This is what we can come together behind. This could be our identity. I went to go and see him the week after at a World Cup qualifier up in Scotland, got invited in with the team before they played, amazing. And what they've done, all 55 members of the team, including the security guy, the kit man, the analysts, the doctor, the coaches, all of them were involved and had a voice to be able to work out what the identity of this team was. And when you truly allow people to express themselves, you trust and empower your people to be able to speak up and give them a forum to do so. Do you know what they come up with? They brought these lions to life and they decided to name them. Nobody in this room will know this. They named the top one Fearless. Be fearless in the way you think and the way you act. The second one they named Original. Be original in the way you train and the way you play. And the final one they named Composed. Stay composed in those pressure moments. Because when it comes to the crunch, and it always comes to the crunch, in the World Cup, in the Marines, in business, in life, you've been there before, you've done the hard yards, and you or your team are together and ready for anything. We literally watched this team change their entire culture in the space of 2 weeks right before our very eyes. It's incredible to see. You know, hopefully I've sparked some further discussion with some of you. I've got so much more I'd love to say. You know, this young black kid from South London with a debilitating stutter, with absolutely no chance in life. Just an ordinary kid. You know, I've been in 90 countries around the world, broken a world record, carried the Olympic flag at London 2012, trained European, world and Olympic champions, received a national award, written a best-selling book. I've even dined with the Queen inside Buckingham Palace. And the only reason that I say all of that is this ordinary lad got to be a part of a team where I felt as though I belonged. I felt as though I had an opportunity. I felt as though I could thrive. And that is what true inclusion means to me. The last word has got to go to my wife. It's got to. You know, when I'm away 6 months at a time, 95% of it, I know I'm safe. 5% of it is a bit hairy, agreed. The wife's back home here for 6 months at a time, whilst 6 months pregnant, whilst running around after the other kids, whilst holding down a part-time job, whilst doing the school runs, the washing, the cooking, the ironing, cleaning, about a million other things. People say to me, Scotty, do you think you're a hero? That's easy to answer. Of course I'm not. I'm not what a hero looks like. But I do know one. And my wife is my superhero. And I don't mind standing here just a little bit vulnerable in front of you lovely people to tell you that the love that I have for that woman has no bounds. In our marine shop, we used to have a pink T-shirt. He'll remember it. He's still got it on there. Used to have a pink T-shirt, and on the front it says, do you think it's tough being a Marine? And on the back it says, try being a Marine's wife. Thank you so much for listening to me.
So, hello everyone, it's a privilege to be here. For those who don't know me, my name is Leon Walker. I lead captives across EMEA for Aon, but I used to work here, and I tell everyone that I can speak to that I have the invisible Lloyd's tattoo. I wear it very proudly. It's not quite Yellowstone, but it's very important to me. I think that these conversations are so powerful, and it's a privilege to be here for a couple of reasons. One, representing Lloyd's and speaking to two national treasures, but I think the other one is for David Flint himself. He brought me to London 2013. I was a lost broker up in the Manchester market, and I happened to be introduced to David, and he connected me to the London market. So everything I've done ever since, I have a huge soft spot for this person here, and I'm delighted that he's got his own lecture series because he's been lecturing me for years and years. Years and years. So, Scotty, thank you for that. I'm just going to introduce our fellow panellist, Lorraine Martins, OBE, Global Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Director at Arup, previously led on D&I at the London Olympics in 2012, and a member of the advisory board for the Underwriting Souls research led by Black Beyond Data and the developing of the Inclusive Futures programme. So I've got a few questions for both of you, which I hope to bring to life your perspective on leadership, diversity, challenge, but also the opportunity that we have in hand. So it's not, to Scotty's point, to take some lead from you. We have an opportunity, it's not all negative. But for Lorraine, I'll start with you. You are known to many as the D&I expert that really made the London 2012 Olympics a demonstration of diversity in London. And amongst many other things, you got an OBE for that. What was it like working in the Olympics?
Thank you for such a generous introduction, and I've not been called a national treasure to my face, so that's an accolade that doesn't sit easy with me, so thank you for that. And Scotty, 100%, thank you for that, it's very inspiring. What was it like working on the Games? So I was part of the construction of the Olympic Park, so we built the theatre, and if any of you live in London and go shopping in Westfield, Every time you go there now, from now on, you're going to think of me, because actually that was all part of our responsibility. We were building a town within a town. I live in Hackney, the Federal Republic of Hackney. So when you said Peckham,
side of the
yeah,
river.
oh, listen, I was having issues. I was trying to be really empathy with you, and you said Peckham, and I was like, oh, wrong side of London. But so Hackney, for those of you that know, in the East End of London, really is Hackney, Tower Hamlets, London Borough of Newham, Waltham Forest, all have the wrong indices in terms of health, education, unemployment, particularly of minoritised communities. So working on the games, really, and the construction of the Olympic Park was to try and redress some of those historic imbalances that our communities had experienced, and particularly in terms of regeneration, when we could look at the sector of Canary Wharf. So if any of you that are familiar with in East End terms, you've got Canary Wharf, which is kind of like a gated community. And then we've got another new regeneration opportunity. How do we make that much more accessible and actually build a legacy for the future, learning off of other games that had happened? So for me, the sceptre of doing that and living locally was really exciting. I'd come from an experience of working in the public sector, and I've got an activist heritage, which I'm very proud of. So working on the games was a real opportunity to try and give life to some of my own values, but it was part of the values of what we were doing as working on the games. So there's a real synergy, to your point, a real synergy of feeling that I was at the right place at the right time, doing something that I was really passionate about. And I was in an environment which was completely like-minded. So everybody that was there was at the top of their game. Everybody that was there knew that we were making something that was particularly unique and would have a real impact, and that the world was watching us, right? So there's a goldfish bowl. People was like, they're not going to complete on time. They're going to be like Athens and have people come in and start painting the last minute before. You know, we had all of these things. We had the political dimensions, which were, at the time, how are you going to utilise the money? Because we started off with one budget and the budget grew and all of those things. So the environment was tense at times. But I think for us, we created a real team of people that were facing into the same challenge. And so it's one of the most exciting things that I've been involved in. And it's even more exciting because when I go there, I get a little rush because I know what it was like. I don't know if any of you grew up in East London. So I remember how it was and how we created, we leveled the whole entire environment. And now to look at it and see people enjoying both the Olympic Park and all of the edifices, and now the legacy that's manifesting itself is a real excitement. So, to your question, how was it working on the games? It's a phenomenal experience, and I'm really pleased that I had that opportunity.
It sounds incredible.
And you know, just to speak on that, I mean, I was in London during that time. I got to go over to Stratford every day during the Olympics and the Paralympics as well. I'm sure everybody here will agree that it was the best Olympics ever, and it changed London, right? And I remember travelling from West to East London in my Marines uniform, and everybody was speaking to each other on the tube. Everybody was engaging with each other. You know, that multinational, multi-diverse. Everybody was all. I was handing badges and pin badges round to everybody. Everybody was buzzing, whether they were going to the games or not. And that effort that you're talking about, that bringing the right people together, it changed London, didn't it? Of course, as soon as the Olympics finished, it went back to normal, didn't it?
Yeah, it took a little while, but
and the challenge is, how do we keep it going? Because that was just incredible. It changed us all.
Well, I have a question just about that, because you both talk about being able to create environments where people do feel like they belong. Do you feel like they're part of a club? Do you feel like their identity is a shared identity? But I guess my question for you, Scotty, is when you've been in environments where that's not been the case, and how that's felt, and how you've been able to navigate that environment or seen others navigate that environment, what's that feel like?
Yeah, I was fortunate to be exposed as a, you know, in my 18, 19-year-old self to, you know, these qualities and values that high performance teams have to create.
Yep.
And, you know, when I look around, I see what's going on. I see the lack of opportunity. I see the lack of opportunity for young people to thrive. I see the lack of respect as well. And you know, it's very difficult. These challenges, these things still stick with you. I remember still having some self-doubts after I'd been on operations. I've been in the Marines for like 15 years, and I was thrown in to go and do senior officer training, staff college they call it. I was the only mixed race person there out of 500. Everybody I spoke to had double firsts at Oxford or Cambridge. And even after I'd done all those operations and I had perspective of pressure, I still felt that, do I deserve to be here? That little nagging self-doubt. And I've been lucky to have the training that I do, to be able to have a benchmark where you think, you know what, you've overcome that, you can overcome this, and to have that perspective. But not everybody gets that. And that confidence and belief that comes from these bedrock values, that feeling that you can overcome, is something which we can develop. But I think it's down to the likes of us, so many people in this room, I am sure, incredible role models who want to make a difference to our young people's lives so that they can have those opportunities to thrive that some of us in this room have had as well. And I think it's beholden on us to try to make a difference. It starts with respect, right?
Totally agree.
And I see respect as three ways. The respect you must have for yourself to start with. Hopefully the respect that you have for others. And then finally, the respect that you hope that others have for you. And what I've found is that when you can start off with a bedrock value like respect, then communication lines are open. You've got that ability to inspire, to be role models and help our young people on the stepping stones to success in life. I think that's my mission now, if I'm honest.
That's a wonderful mission, and something I think we can all get behind. And you know, talking about missions and a collective response to change and history. Lorraine, you were involved in the Inclusive Futures programme. Firstly, what inspired you to get involved, and how have you found that journey, and what are your aspirations for taking that forward, and how do you feel Lloyds has managed it so far?
First off, I felt, I think you have to give props to Mark Lomas, right? Where is Mark in here? He's sitting somewhere at the back.
Oh, yeah.
Without Mark, I wouldn't be sitting here, right? So Mark, I think, needs the utmost props from you all for getting that project off the ground. I think it was incredibly seminal for you to think about how you utilise the historic resources that you have, that formed Lloyds of London, to try and make some sorts of reparations for future generations. An incredibly brave and bold project. And so I was blown away by the fact that you could even think that was it. And you did it at a time where, you know, there was the sceptre of the murder of George Floyd. So there was a lot of performative actions and reactions that were responding to that. And what you decided to do was something that was systemic and built on the history and the profits, and thought, well, how could we redistribute that and make some amends in the future? So I was absolutely blown away by the fact that Lloyds of London would do that. So, you know, absolute props to you, and I was honoured to really be part of that. And then I think the group and the research that you undertook was so robust and so sensitive in trying to extrapolate from a history which businesses don't want to necessarily get into, and who owns it, where does the profit start from, how did we gain all of that. That is not a history that businesses are ready to necessarily explore. And that was, you did that at a time when it was really challenging. So for me, that you did that project, that you resourced it, that you did the robust research that enabled you then at every step of the stage of that project to say, right, what can we do differently? How can we learn? How can we make things better for the future? Has been a real lesson to me. And so for me, if you could talk about it more, I would really encourage you to do that. And I know, big institutions are kind of shy about saying these things. And also other institutions will look at you and go, well, I don't know if should we really do that? What does it mean? How do we take accountability for things that happened in the past before we were here? And I think it's a really great example of building on a history that we don't talk about, that is seminal, because a lot of the divisions we have are based on the fact of the difference in treatment of different people from different heritages and backgrounds, and how we create access to resources and opportunities. If we don't address those things, then things will continue. So to me, you've led the way. I don't think there's enough talk about it. I would give you more confidence as an institution to talk about it and share it, to give others an example of what can be done. And I think it stands you in great stead. So to me, as I said, it was an absolute honour. I was absolutely blown away and impressed by the approach that you've taken. And I'm forever indebted to Mark. I haven't paid him or anything. He hasn't. And he's not paid me, actually, to be honest. The invoice is still outstanding. But I'm genuinely indebted to Mark for being bold enough and corralling you all to get that work done.
So I think one of the things about leadership, and we talk about it from many different perspectives, Lloyd's role in this market is to lead, right? So I'm so delighted when people from outside our market see us leading, right? I think the Inclusive Futures programme is a phenomenal, to your word, seminal piece of work, but it's not finished, right? We've got 1,500 profiles identified of talent that can go on to senior leadership roles. Half of those are ethnically diverse talents. I expect to be surrounded by other leaders that look like me and you guys on the stage. And that's down to the people that lead the market today. There's no point doing this work and then letting that talent pool wilter away and go and work for Amazon and Google, and they're our clients, right? We want them to be here. We want the best people to be here. I feel proud of this place, and I want you guys to feel proud of that too. You have a role to play. So thank you for your reflection. But I want you to come back again in a couple of years' time and go, you've carried it on, we've done more, we've taken it further and been bolder. So just on that, Scotty, I've got a question for you about wearing the green beret. I talked about that invisible Lloyd's tattoo, right? You said, no one's interested in your background, just do the job. If you can do the job, you get my respect. How do you nurture that? How do you ensure people feel safe to challenge each other in that environment?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's funny, from literally the first second you get there, they tell you that we'll show you how to do everything, how we behave, what our qualities and values are, and you're assessed by them. So you actually assessed against integrity. Did you do the right thing or did you do the thing that was easiest? And at the end of the week, they'll come back and say, actually, you walked past the litter, you didn't go and pick it up. So you did the easy thing rather than the right thing. And you're assessed on that every day. And then it becomes a norm, it becomes your habit and your behaviour. You're exposed to doing the right thing as a young person, then you like to try to inspire others around you to do and to be the same, to show those moral values, to show that integrity, that humility, that moral courage to do the right thing. And, when you couple that with respect, when you couple that with our commando values that we hold so dear, and of course, they are not just the Marines' values. These go across everybody in every walk of life. And, we're very proud to have, you spoke about an invisible badge there. What does it truly mean to work? The pride that you have, it shines. don't need something to show you. It shines and exudes from you. And the way I see it is that leaders set the tone and environment for any organisation. And, you know, I had 13 different promotions, I think, through my time in the Marines. So no matter where you were on the promotion ladder, I like to think that I had open door access to my boss upwards, supported the people who you have the privilege to lead below you, drive those standards from within the organisation, and then expel those standards out to anybody who'll listen to you, the way that it exudes from you today. And I think that's a leader's role. Look after your people, be inspiring, set the standard, be the standard that everybody aspires to be. And I think that's what a high performance team starts to look like.
You should write that down.
And I think what I really like, you said so many things that I really appreciate and like, but I think for those of us that are leaders here, the word that you've used several times is about the privilege that we have as leaders. And I think oftentimes we don't really appreciate that privilege because we affect the futures, the environment, the culture that people experience. So we need to take that privilege really, really seriously and to affect then the changes that we want to see in terms of who comes through, who has access to opportunities. That, you know, that rests within our gift. So that privilege we should use judiciously.
You know, that's interesting, right? So you know, me and Gareth Southgate are pals, and we keep in touch with each other, which is great. But I'm going to bring out about his qualities as a leader, because he's a very inspirational leader, actually. So his team doesn't do very well. The first person you'll see in front of all the cameras is Gareth Southgate saying, being humble, no ego, I chose the team, I chose the tactics, this is on me, taking the pressure off your team, because they're all young people and that would be crushing. Tens of millions of people saying you're a failure. He knows to do that. But then he goes to the next level as a leader, as an inspirational role model. When his team does great, how many leaders do you know are in the shadows, in the darkness, pushing their team forward to accept
That's right.
to accept the accolades? You did it, you go forwards. And, you know, those are some of the best leaders that I've ever come across. The guy that I showed you up there, you know, incredible leaders. I've got time for a little story about leader.
Very quick one, yeah.
Okay. This guy called Gordon Messenger, who you know. He was my commanding officer in Iraq. To cut a long story short, our third child was born while I was out in Iraq, and he came up to me and said, Scotty, I'm really sorry for not being able to get your daughter, for you home for the birth of your daughter, but he had a big satellite phone, could make one call a day, and he'd made that call back home so that I could speak to the wife. It's a girl, you know, amazing. He comes up to me and said, Scotty, I'm sorry for not getting you home. That's where you should be. I'll make it up to your wife one day. How many times do we hear a boss make big promises? Yeah? And I knew him. I thought, okay. 4 years later, you saw the picture of me and him there. I was commissioned into the Marines. 4 years later, he was the inspecting officer. I meet him at the bar. He's got a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. Says, Scotty, where's the wife? I've not seen him for 4 years. I said, she's down there. So off he went down towards her. I'm scurrying behind him like one of his minions, as usual. He goes up to my wife, says, Suzanne, remembers her name. He had command of 1,000 Marines, by the way. Suzanne, I'm so sorry for not getting Scotty home for the birth of Casey. Remembered her name. Here's a bottle of champagne, there's 2 glasses. Me and you are going to sit and drink that. Scotty's not invited. What's all that about?
Lovely. Amazing.
Talk about leadership, inspiring leaders. I've never forgotten him. Best leader I've ever worked with, as I've told you.
Amazing. Well, look, I need to bring our amazing panel to a close. It's been phenomenal just to sit with you both and gain your perspective on leadership, on diversity, on inclusion, like genuinely including people, and a sense of collective identity. That's what we should have in this market. That's what we sell to the world. So it's incumbent upon each of us sat here to bring that to life. So thank you very much to both of you for being here, and I'll hand over to David to finish off with closing remarks. No?
Got a Q&A.
Oh, sorry. Forgive me. Go back. Before I hand over to David, I will open up to the audience for questions. David, you can ask one if you want. I've got a question here. Do we have a mic or?
Yeah, just coming round.
Hi, my name is Ken. I'm the Head of Inclusion and Diversity at AXA XL.
Hi, Ken.
And first and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you for being role models. Like, seeing is believing, and honestly, it raises aspirations when you see people who have done so well in their careers. So thanks for that. But my question itself is about leadership. So there are leaders in this room and future leaders in this room as well. What are some of the practical tips and advice you can give us for driving performance excellence, but not eroding that feeling of belonging?
Great question. I suppose the best tips I could ever give you as a potential or future leader, never ask your people to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. We've already mentioned that one. Trust and empower your people and let them get on with their jobs and don't micromanage them is one that I think is important. And I think those are the two that stick out mostly for me anyway.
One of the things that I think is really important and has been important for me is spending time with my people. Talent needs space to grow, needs space to learn, to fail, to learn from those mistakes. And if you give people time, that's the thing that I have, right? So I've got knowledge and expertise, blah, blah, blah. But if I don't give my team time and access to me, then that for me is what they fed back and said, that's actually what we want from you, Lorraine. So I've set up my team that they can have whatever time they want from me. Like, they're my priority, because if they don't deliver, they don't perform, I don't perform. Right? So for me, one of the things that's been really important has been giving time. And it's been a learning for me, because actually I get to appreciate how my team experiences the world, the organisation, the challenges, and gives me an opportunity to work with them through those things. And then I can also share my vulnerabilities and challenges for them to learn how I might operate. So for me, the essence of great leadership is that time, that accessibility to what I might be able to offer and give and share.
Oh, that's such a great answer as well. And you know what, if I build on that a little bit.
Of course.
Something that's always stood me in good stead was someone once said to me, if you have the privilege to ever lead anybody, then try to find a way to inspire them every single day, if you can. And how do you inspire people? Well, you give them access to you, don't you? And do something for them. Show some interest. Make them feel valued. And of course, it's good leadership to do that. Because when people feel valued, they feel as though they got you here, they're going to give you the best of what they've got. They're going to give you their innovation. They're going to give you their ideas. They're going to feel that freedom to be able to express themselves without fear of judgment, right? And something that I've found that's worked for me my whole career, and I still do it now, is I try to inspire to start with in some way. Then if you can inspire people, they're more likely to engage with you. I think things just land on them better. And if people will then engage with you, then you can help them to develop and help them to change. And that inspire, engage and change has worked for me my whole career, and I still use it today.
I think we had a question at the back.
Yes, I'm Ola Jacob, and I work at Global Parametrics, and I lead our business development. And I'm also a Homerton baby, so I understand where you're coming from. But I was going to say that your stories are so inspiring, and Leon, even a good friend of mine I know, is someone that inspires me. And as leaders and people that are setting the blaze, the trail for the next generation, how do you, when you've been in your darkest moments, how do you bring yourself back? And when you've got people around you that have been in their darkest moments to then get to the stage you are now, what advice have you got to bring yourself out of that, apart from learning from the lessons of the bad, that you can share with us here today?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. And I think if I think of what has grounded me, has been family, friends, community. I'm not defined by my job. So people, thank you for saying all these wonderful things. But when I'm walking along the street, nobody knows who I am or what I do. I'm just this old black lady now, right? That's just whatever. But actually, the grounding that I've had has stood me really in great stead in those darkest moments, right? And they come and they go. You all work in insurance, right? Up and down, investments. That's life, right? They come and they go. But for me, the constant has been family, friends, and community that has always been there for me and allowed me to be not Lorraine, this whatever, but just Lorraine. And me feeling safe enough to kind of bow to those moments, because you have to be in those moments in order to come out the other side and grow. So for me, it's who's around you and nurturing those relationships. I'm gonna bask in the glory of David here. He came in, and I was sitting beside Sky and Rose, and I went, I know him. I know David. I didn't know David Flint, right? I know Dave from Tottenham. Dave and Isaac. I'm saying this because this is the roots, right? So if I see Dave anywhere, I'm like, that's what helps you through your darkest moments. Having people around you that are part of your wider circle and community that you can just vibe with. I don't see Dave very often, but I know Dave. And now I'm in awe of Dave because it's David Flint. But it's to say, have those connections, right? Nurture those relationships, because that gives you your kind of grounding and enables you and supports you through those darkest moments.
Can I add a comment?
Of course.
So, Scotty, you mentioned your grandfather being a hero of yours. My grandfather came just after Windrush. My grandmother came a few years later because she refused to get on a boat to come here. She said, you go make money, and when you can afford to fly me over, then I will come. So I came from a very proud foundation, to your point. So I can tell you that when I look around the sort of leadership of the brokers and the underwriters, there's not many people that look like me in the position that I'm in. So when I have to go into my internal monologue, I listen to my granddad's voice. I dress like this because my granddad dressed like this, not because this is the rules of Lloyd's. This is how he dressed. Yeah. So this is my family standard. Yeah. And I bring my family standard to all of my problems. And I think to answer your question, I go to the core. Yeah. I go back and look at the pictures of my granddad dressed exactly as I am today. And I go, yes, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Yeah. And if I can't find a role model, I wasn't lucky enough to meet you two until today. I go and become that for someone else. So that's how I get through it.
I think I'd like to say something on that. Great question, by the way. You talk about dark moments and overcoming them. When we went down towards Iraq, we got to Gibraltar, and they gave us our little Nokia brick phones back. We could make one last call home. Remember them? And we called home, and we were hearing that not everybody's behind the Iraq war and that there was 1 million people protesting in Whitehall, and we're like that. This was a difficult moment, because you'd like to think that when you serve, why do I serve? What am I serving for? Am I going to make a difference? And most people back home don't want this. And, is it a just war? Is it a legal war? Am I doing something illegal? You've got all of that comes out as well. This was a difficult time to be a commander. So we get on the ground. We had to go to the local town once we were there, and we were very well received at the time. There were women waving at us from behind their walls, kids coming out and we're giving them sweets. And this is in the southernmost tip of Iraq. A poor fella come out, he's about 70 years old, he had his top off. You could see that he had an ingrained suntan and his whole body had, you could see he'd been tortured, front and back, and there were scars everywhere on his front and back. And he threw himself at our feet. I was the commander on the ground that day. We had an interpreter with us, and he said, can you please go to the local police station where not one, but all 5 of his daughters had been taken away by the regime. He'd spoken out against the regime, they tortured him, took one of his daughters away. They took them all in the end. We went to the police station, everybody had fled, the army had gone, the police had gone, there was grenades and RPGs everywhere. Massive great building, and we went in from the top and did this room clearance. Marines are good at that. And we got to the basement. Well, it wasn't a basement, it was like a jail. Well, it wasn't a jail, it was actually a dungeon. And it was dark, there were hooks on the walls, and there was cake blood and stuff, and they were really small, and it was freezing cold. And I went inside one of them, and one of my Marines had brushed past and inadvertently closed the gate behind me. It was pitch black. And at that moment, I knew that the worst possible conceivable probably did happen to all 5 of those poor girls. That hatred and that abuse was something that was real, that I saw. Still stays with me in my dreams sometimes at night, but then it reminded me why I served. And I remembered, we got this poor little bloke here who has suffered so much. Irrelevant of the political reasons for us being there, I'm glad that we're here today to support this poor bloke. He has suffered enough. I see myself as a peaceful warrior, try to make a positive difference to people's lives wherever I go. And that's always been in my heart, and that has come from my family heritage, to be proud of what you do, hold your head up high, and know that you did the best that you could.
Definitely. And that seems like a phenomenal way to actually end this time. So thank you again to my panellists. Again, a truly inspirational conversation. David, over to you.
Thank you.
Shall we?
I think you guys
Stay here?
Yes,
Okay.
stay there.
I've been told to sit down, guys.
Oh, yeah, just stay where you are. I made the mistake the first time I was called up because I came up, it sounded as if you were clapping for me. So can I give them another round of applause? Yeah. Leon, as he said earlier, was a young guy when he came down from up north, and I remember I gave him a ton of advice about what he should do and what he shouldn't do in a particular interview. And the HR people had said to me, whatever you do not let him put a picture on his CV. So I said, whatever you do, no pictures on the CV. So he goes to an interview, he comes back, when I get the feedback, he didn't need to put a picture on his CV because he'd done a full PowerPoint presentation, including himself, etc. So he'd done everything they said he shouldn't have done. And the interesting thing is, because he didn't follow the route that most people would have done, he ended up getting a job that I think even the people three of the people who interviewed him thought he wasn't going to get. People talk about inspiration. Every time I look in at LinkedIn and I see him move up the ladder, for me, that's inspirational. I think a lot of people say, David, you've got this elevated position, you've got your picture in Lloyd's, you've got the Flint Lecture. But actually, I learn more from young people. I give my time to young people, mentoring them, but I'm actually learning from them. They're there asking me the questions, but the young people, as Michael Jackson said, that's the future. They are our future, and they're the future of this business. I think I look at Lorraine, stole my thunder,
But yeah, me and a friend called Isaac were just that. I met Lorraine. When I met her, she was, for me, don't take this the wrong way, slightly scary, because she was passionate, she was driven, she was an intellectual. I was just this kid from Tottenham. And to see her on the stage tonight, you know, it's a parallel that we've run. And it was so great seeing her, because as you said, we don't see each other that often. But it's absolutely brilliant. And she, you know, she was inspirational for me before I even knew about inspiration. Listening to Scotty, well, what can I say? Well, the only thing I can say, because obviously you don't want to make comparisons, but I ran Lloyd's Football Club for 17 years. It wasn't the Southgate I was after. And I was privileged to take them down for 11 of those years, down to Exmouth to play in the Marines. Yeah. They beat us for the first 5 seasons, and then we got back, and eventually we beat them. And I can tell you, those boys don't like losing. But they were the most inspirational people to spend time. I've got lifelong friends from that. So the Marines as an institution, I can't say more about them. They are fantastic. Listening to your story, inspirational that's not even a word to you. I'm not sure what word, there are no words to describe what you've talked to us about. To think, even your last story there, you can't even begin to think that that's a real thing. Someone made that up in a movie. And so listening to what you talk about, the passion you have, the fact that you're here still spreading the word. And I was at that school gate, and I know, because if I turn left and I turn right, if I turned right, I don't know what that meant. That's just where Isaac was going. A lot of my friends turn left, and you know, they're either not here or, as you say, in a prison doing whatever they're doing. When you lived in Tottenham, it wasn't necessarily survival of the fittest, but you just needed a break. And I think everybody in our careers need a break. And I got mine. And I got mine, came to the city, ended up working at Alexander Howden, and got a job as a broker, and the rest is history. And I got my portrait put up in Lloyd's. After George Floyd, there was quite a big movement for Lloyd's, from Lloyd's, and you have to respect them for that. But I think the key element is that when that portrait first went up, I was called a trailblazer and a load of other stuff, and I couldn't see it. But now, kind of a couple of years later, seeing the things that have happened, seeing the things that the number of people have come to me and what I've been able to share, people saying to me that it's inspirational, it does sit better. I listen to your stories there, and that leadership, you know, I always just say to people, I'm not a trailblazer, I just got up every day and went to work, because that's what I did. But it's not until that marker went down in the room that I could see other people following. You know, you've said something fantastic there, but I know Leon is the same. When it comes to leadership, the key to it is, I know I've met so many people who aspire and they get up and they get into the boardroom, shut the door behind them, right, I'm here. And the boardroom can be a nice place, it can be a nasty place. And when it turns against you and you look around for your friends and you realise they're all outside the door because you locked it, one of the things that I always do is I like to help people and help them up. Sometimes, due to circumstance, you have to shut the door, but don't lock it. Always leave it ajar for somebody else to come through. And I think this event here tonight, I'm proud to have my name to it. This is the second year, and I think Lloyd's, I've got to give a lot of respect to Lloyd's for what they're doing in terms of inclusive futures, the recognition of the relationship between their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. A plaque now just in the floor below us that was unveiled a couple of weeks ago. That is a permanent marker of holding their hands up and saying, this is what we did, this is our involvement, and that's key. But I think tonight, thank you very much for coming. And one last thing, because I'm sure I've gone way over my 2 minutes. I'm doing things and trying to inspire other people. Today, there are two people in the room, Maya and Jason, who are part of a new initiative called the David Flint International Fellows. It's working with a group called HBCU in the US, and we've brought them over from the US. For the last couple of days, they've been in Gallagher, in Aon, at the Hartford, experiencing the insurance industry. And next year, maybe the year after, we're going to take some people back from the UK. And it all came when me and a very good friend of mine, Rebecca Ratcliffe, were having a conversation. And unfortunately, and it tends to always be around, if we talk about the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. And I said, well, what can we do that's going to change that? So we decided to kind of create that journey from the US to the UK, UK to the US, but with young, bright minds, rather than people in a ship that had no destiny and had everything taken away from them. We're taking those people and giving them a destiny, and hopefully that will be successful. Can I just ask Maya and Jason to stand, please? Thank you for coming. And there's if you don't mind, before the refreshments, there's a short video that is going to be played regarding the inclusive futures.
In 2020, Lloyd's offered an apology for its role in transatlantic slavery. That started a period of reflection and research. That culminated in the Inclusive Futures Program, Lloyd's response. We consulted with hundreds of ethnically diverse individuals across the market and Black experts. And the Inclusive Futures Program is a program which will support Black and ethnically diverse groups from the classroom to the boardroom.
We're so proud of the impact Inclusive Futures has made on the market through our various initiatives. Our initiatives are based around 5 key pillars.
On behalf of everyone at the Cowrie Scholarship Foundation, thank you to Inclusive Futures for the partnership to enable talented, disadvantaged Black British students to enter UK universities in the coming decade. The Inclusive Futures funding has also enabled us to release additional funds to support these scholars through mentoring, webinars and workshops.
We've been working with Equity City on our recruitment partnership so that we can access more diverse candidate pools. And actually, just in January, our first hire joined the organisation from that collaboration into underwriting via our apprenticeship scheme. And they're thriving already. Now that's talent that wouldn't necessarily have found its way to us otherwise.
In order to create real change, we knew we had to collaborate with firms across our market and also some great delivery partners.
Collective power is our key strength, and by working together, there are no limits to what we can achieve.